Hi guys, I'm live. I'm with Grappling Hearts. Today we've got Frank Rosenthal with us. Super excited. Anyone who doesn't know Frank, he's a really good competitor. You've taken first place at like Rise and On It, right?
Yep.
So, Frank, to start us off, do you kind of want to talk about what got you into jiu-jitsu?
Sure. So, one of my best friends, was, started training at the, Matt Serra Academy. Um, we were probably, 16 at the time, and, he was a really good competitor, still is. And I was watching him compete a lot and train a lot. And unfortunately, at that time, there was no like jujitsu schools close enough to where I lived. So I was definitely a fan of the sport before I actually did it, which is kind of like um, usually not how it works nowadays. I feel like people
Right.
do it and become a fan, but yeah. So he ended up moving to New York City and training at Henzo's. Um, and he's the one that introduced me into the sport. And yeah, he's kind of his name's Eric Sherman. He's another Renzo Gracie black belt, really good competitor, and he was my very first introduction into martial arts. And yeah, he's been a huge influence on my game since day one.
That's awesome. I've heard of it. He's really good too. When you all had first went into Hinzo, was it just because it was close, or was it also that cognitive decision of Hinzo's like the elite competitor
Um,
right now?
yeah, so I mean, it's funny. Like Eric trained at he started at Matt Serra's Academy, which is like a Renzo Gracie affiliate. So I quickly understood that like the Renzo Gracie family and network was like providing such good instruction. Um, and so I ended up starting out at a Renzo Gracie affiliate school because I didn't have the means to get into the city every day. Um, and then once I came home from college and stuff like that and was a little bit more settled, I could make it into the city more often. But I felt very fortunate to train at all the different Renzo Gracie affiliate schools. Not just the main academy. Um, and so now like I'm at the Renzo Gracie main academy as well as Renzo Gracie Bronx and Renzo Gracie Bayside where I teach. So it's all kind of like one big family. So I would say that was like an aspect that drew me in was that yeah, there was good jujitsu at the main academy, but there was also really good jujitsu in all the affiliate schools as well.
That's awesome. So you mentioned you went to college. You went for physical education, right?
Yeah, that's right.
When you was at college, I read that you had wrestled. Do you think that helped you become more apt to try out jiu-jitsu and try that
Um,
different?
it's funny, like yeah, in certain areas, obviously like any form of grappling is helpful. But I would say that like it wasn't until I started working with John that I understood wrestling in the context of jiu-jitsu because the reality is like yeah, wrestling does help, but the way that you wrestle in submission grappling when things like the scoring system's different, you're not wearing shoes, and most of all, like people are allowed to do submissions to you while you're trying to take them down. It really changes the context of it. So I would say like it wasn't until I really started working with John that I understood that we're not purely wrestling here. We're doing submission wrestling, and that very much differs from, collegiate or folk style or even freestyle wrestling for that matter.
Like you brought up John, I was going to ask. You are now, at the main academy, learning and training and whatnot. So, can you kind of talk about what it's like to learn from John Danaher? And like, you train a lot with, I mean, from what I see on Instagram, you train a lot with like Gordon Ryan too, right?
Yeah. So training with John has been, obviously like an unbelievable experience, and I feel very fortunate. I feel like I had a very like deep love for jujitsu when I started, but I don't know that I would be able to have made this my life if it wasn't for John. Like I don't think I would have, not that I'm anywhere close to where I want to be, but I don't even think I would have gotten this far without John's help and his insight. So I really feel like I owe so much to him because like he made it possible for me to be in an environment where I could make jujitsu my, my lifestyle and my living. Um, yeah, I'm really fortunate also to have like a bunch of great training partners, some that people have heard of, some that people, haven't, Gordon being one of them. And Gordon is another one that like, man, like he almost has like two jobs, because like John's job is to coach and he does such a good job at it. Gordon is obviously a competitor, and I've always been very impressed and grateful that like Gordon will always take time out of his day or training session to help me with whatever I need, as well as the other guys that ask him. So Gordon very much, and Gary as well, function like they kind of wear two hats. Like they're training and getting done what they need to get done, but they're also, good kind of team captains for us and a good resource for us to ask questions to and stuff like that.
That's awesome. So where you have like you mentioned Gary, you got Gary and Gordon both out there like killing it. Where you got that kind of person to look after, do you think that's kind of like a driving force for other new black belts trying to get out there? Do you think that inspires them to try to push to do better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's funny. It's like you never want to be like the top dog in the room. You never want to be like the best guy in the room. And the reason I say that is because like you get very complacent and it's easy to think like, "Oh, I'm doing so great, like and I can chill, I can coast." But having those two guys, it's always pushing, the up and coming guys like myself to to be like, "Oh man, like we got a long way to go. Like I want to be where these guys are at. I want to do what these guys are doing." And so yeah, they serve as great motivation, and it's also been cool to see like the whole process from the beginning. Like I've been training with them before either one of them. Sorry about that.
You're good.
Before either one of them, were even at ADCC. And so to see like Gary, come from a local guy to what he is now, and Gordon to be, a talented guy to, the number one guy in jiu-jitsu right now. It's been a cool road to see them earn that and work really hard for it.
I think it's a really great mindset to have. And okay, so when you was even like lower belts, like color belts, you had some good success in like IBJJF. Was it? I read that it was at ADCC. Was it a trials that you had won?
No, I did the trials in 2015. I didn't do very well at all. Lost my first match. Through the lower belts, I competed in the IBJJF a little bit. I never I did okay. Like I would, medal here and there. Took second at the Nogi Pans, but I never really broke through and won like a major title, like the Worlds or the Euros or something like that. So I felt like I always had potential maybe because like I was doing okay, but I certainly didn't. I feel like I didn't really break through until the end of brown belt, to be honest. That's where I really kind of felt like, okay, I can really do this at a high level and I can win at a high level. At the lower belts, it was more just like, I'm doing the best I can, and you win some, you lose some. But looking back, that's kind of okay because now as like a black belt, you realize like nobody really cares about what you did at blue or purple or even brown belt. It matters what you do at black belt. And so if I would have had success then, it would have been really cool. But um, it's cool at the time. It's not really, it doesn't do anything for you once it's over. So yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so you said that you had realized that you had potential to do at a high level at about brown belt. Is
Yeah.
that when you realized that's what you wanted to do with your life?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to do it full time. But like I said, like I went to college, like I finished school. Um, then even when I finished school, like I knew I wanted to do jujitsu full time, but I wasn't fully convinced that I could, for both financial reasons, and there's also still part of you that's like, man, like am I good enough to do this? And I would say like on it was like the turning point for me. Like on it 8, like winning that featherweight tournament was the turning point for me where I said, okay, like there's no going back now. Like we're going at this 100%, and there's no reason why I can't do this. And that's kind of where everything changed a little bit. Um, so so yeah, it was always the goal, but sometimes you can't just abandon everything uh, and go straight to it. You have to like set yourself up a little bit and be a little bit more calculated before you just quit your job and and burn the boats, so to speak.
100%. And where you brought up that on it was kind of your turning point, do you think that every black belt who has made this their life and like their full-time job, you think they all have that one tournament or that one match that was like, I can do this, I can make this happen?
Yeah, I think a lot of them do. I can't speak for all of them, but I think it's a fairly common thing. Like if you talk to a lot of competitors, I think a lot of them will tell you that they had that one match or that one tournament that changed it for them. And sometimes it's not even a tournament that they won or a match that they won. It could have been, I know a lot of guys like maybe they competed against a really experienced and good competitor and they didn't win, but it was close and it was competitive, and it gave them the insight that like, hey, like I'm not so far off here. So I think it's one of those interesting things where even if you don't win, it can be like a window into the future, and you can kind of, that light bulb can come on and you can say, oh man, like I could do this shit.
100%. Sometimes it might be that one match that you didn't win that pushes you to do better. It's like, oh man, I can, absolutely.
That's right.
So you mentioned you've done a little bit of coaching at which school is it again?
I teach at the Hensel Gracie Bayside Academy. It's in Queens.
Got you. So do you think that coaching is also beneficial to your learning experience because you might see like minor details everywhere?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny, like, especially teaching, beginners or the white belt class, there's so many things that we do, probably at this point without thinking about it. And when you teach a white belt class, you have to really like look at it through the lens of somebody that is doing jujitsu for the first time, which gets really hard to do, especially when, if you've already been training for 12 years, like that was a long time ago for me. Um, and so yeah, I think it's definitely beneficial, and it's also something that I'm working on and trying to improve, as well as being a competitor. Like I want to very much be a good instructor as well. So I'm always kind of looking in the mirror and thinking, okay, like how could I improve as an instructor, day to day.
That's good. I like that you're constantly trying to improve. A question for our lower belts because I think some lower belts ask this, and I think it varies from person to person. Do you believe that of course not everyone can compete at the high level, but do you think that everyone can instruct at the high level?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't know about like 100% of people, to be honest. Like, I think teaching is something that maybe people don't give enough credit to. Um, like, I'll be honest, like, I'm very fortunate to have had very, very good instructors in my time in jiu-jitsu, but um, being a good instructor is not an easy thing. And like for every great instructor out there, like the reality is there are guys that are not that good at teaching. And I think when you find a good instructor, like you should value them and try to learn from them if that's the route you want to go. But I think if you work hard at anything, like yeah, people can absolutely become whatever they want to, whether it's a competitor or a really good teacher. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't say like being a good teacher is like an easy out to being a competitor because I've seen how difficult it is to be a really effective instructor. And it's hard, it's hard work like anything else is. But if people are willing to put the work in, then yeah, I think it's totally doable.
Got you. Okay, so Frank, you've had pretty good success with leg locks, right?
It's on some days, yeah.
Okay, so you got people like Gordon Ryan, who at first he was known as a leg locker, and then he got known for just taking everyone's backs and choking them. and now he's known for just pretty much doing what he wants with them, right? Picking what submission he wants. So my
Yeah.
question for you is, do you think that each competitor has like a circle of submissions? And what I mean by that is they pick one submission, they get super good at it, then they move on to the next one.
Yeah, I think that tends to be how it works. And I think that can be good and bad. I think like when you develop a strong area in your submission game, what it has the potential to do is open up other submissions. So like with leg locks are very interesting because oftentimes when you're really effective with leg locks, people turn out of them. And when people turn out of them, their back now becomes available. So if you're thinking progressively, you're like, oh, now I can couple my leg lock attacks with my back attacks. The downside, though, to becoming really strong in one area that I see in today's game, and I've been guilty of as well, is that competitors, for whatever reason, tend to handcuff themselves to that game and they won't leave that area. So you get a leg lock guy that only wants to do leg locks and he won't do anything else. And as a result, he doesn't really hit his potential. Or you get the close guard guy that is really gnarly from close guard but won't do anything else. You get the guard passing guy that's incredible on top, but you put him on his back and he's like, you know, he's not so scary anymore. So I would say like developing an area of specialty is important, but use it to catapult the rest of your game and to develop the rest of your game, so that you're as well rounded. And like you said, like now put Gordon wherever you want. You know, put him on the feet, put him on top, put him on bottom. You know, he's gonna find a way to smoke you.
100%. And then, so that kind of ties into this a little bit. It's so easy to get comfortable in no-gi because, I mean, it opens up so many more submissions, so many more rule sets. But do you think that the gi is still important to know or to no-gi because everything transfers over?
Yeah, I mean it's such an interesting question, especially because I'm on kind of both sides of it. You know, like when I started jiu-jitsu, I trained in the gi, 5 days a week, and I trained no gi 1 or 2 days a week, and that was the case up until pretty much purple belt, and even up until brown belt, I competed in the gi. So I do believe that you can be successful training in the gi and then transitioning to no gi later. Um, Provided that you're also doing no gi in the beginning. I'm not saying like train 100% gi and then don't do a no gi class until you're a purple belt. But I think the old cliche of like you have to train in the gi to be good at no gi, I don't think that's true anymore. Like, I know plenty of guys that have never worn a gi, that are pretty damn good no gi. So, like my students, I like them to be well rounded. Like if they're just starting out, like, you train in the gi and then once you get your feet wet a little bit, you can do no gi. But, if by purple belt or even blue belt, like one of my students came to me and said, hey, I really want to focus on no gi and be a no gi competitor. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I do think that like there is something nice and something to be said for, you go from white to black belt and you did put some time in the gi and you at least know the game. But it's kind of a tricky one. Like, so in short, like, do I think you have to train the gi to be effective no gi? No, I don't. But you can still have both. You know what I mean? Like my gi game is obviously nowhere as good as my no gi game, but I still know what's going on. I still spent a lot of time in the gi, and I can provide for my students, and teach in the gi. Like I know the current game.
100%. And so this goes back to kind of a mixture of the gi and leg lock. You see a lot of, which I'm not, by God, please, anyone watching, don't take this as me picking on Brazilians, dear God. But you see a lot of Brazilians that will only train no-gi, or my bad, train gi, and they switch over to the no-gi world, or they take one no-gi match, and their mind is just blown because they don't trade leg locks near as much. Do you think it's important that at that level you need to put yourself in those positions for that reason?
Yeah, I would say like anybody looking to compete at the world class level, like which I'm assuming you're referring to,
Yes.
you should probably specialize in what you're going to compete in. it kind of drives me insane all the time when I see someone say, "Oh, well, so and so wins no-gi, but that's all they do, whereas I split my time between the gi and no-gi." And I'm like, man, like that's your choice. Like, if you were trying to become the best in the world at something, why would you do anything else except that one thing? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm very impressed. I still watch gi competition. I'm a fan of gi competition. I think winning the worlds in the gi, or whatever title, is incredible. And I if you want to do both, like great, like that's fine. But don't sit there and complain then that these guys are only focusing on one and they therefore have some advantage that you weren't offered. Like everybody has a choice on how they want to spend their time. You don't see Olympic wrestlers playing badminton half the year. Like they're wrestling because that's their goal, is to win the Olympics in wrestling. So if your goal is to win ADCC, like you should probably train no-gi full time. Like I don't think you have to be a genius to figure that out. So yeah, I think nowadays we're at the point where if you want to win at the top level, you should pick a specialty. Like if you want to be gi world champion, that's awesome. Train and compete in the gi. If you want to be ADCC champion, that's great. Train and compete no gi.
Absolutely. Like I said, time management is key there. Um, Frank, what kind of goals have you got for right now, and what kind of aspirations do you have with this?
That's a good question. I would say like specific short-term goals. I'm very much looking forward to the trials, which are scheduled for November. Keeping my fingers crossed that those will still happen. And I guess like I used to have such specific goals of what I wanted to do. I was like, man, like I want to win this tournament, and I want to beat this guy, and I want to. And I feel like over time I've realized that like having specific goals is important, but they don't always leave you with they don't always like foster like the best development. So I would say like right now I've kind of realized like my goal is to reach my jiu-jitsu potential, whatever that may be. And um, you know, I think that that's important, especially for like long-term development. If I said, yeah, I want to be, I'll just use ADCC as an example, like ADCC champion, which obviously I do, like everybody, does. And I didn't reach it, you're kind of like, oh, this was all for nothing. Like I didn't, it's binary. I either did it or I didn't do it. But I feel like if I focus my energy in the right direction, which is like working as hard as I can every day and trying to improve as efficiently as I can, then whatever happens along the way will happen. Like the titles will take care of themselves, the wins will take care of themselves. But I used to get so wrapped up in like a specific match or a specific goal that it was almost like I'm holding on too tight, and it kind of distracts you from actually succeeding. And so over the years, or the last couple of years especially, I've tried to like look at it a little bit differently. So I still keep my specific goals, like of tournaments I want to obviously capture, or guys I would like to compete against, but it's not like life and death anymore. It's more just like, let me do what I'm supposed to do, and the wins will probably just take care of themselves anyway.
That's a great mindset to keep, especially where, like you're saying, if you hold on too tight, you might become a little too wrapped up. And with that being said, I think it's not, or backtrack. It's a common thing nowadays to see people going on like social media and calling out certain guys.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is a classy way to do it and a more respectful way to do it? And if you do it that way, do you think you're more apt to get that match?
Yeah, and in fact, it's funny. I was just talking about this last night with a buddy of mine. I have no problem with people calling other people out on social media. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think we're at a point where that's kind of how the game works, and that's okay. Now, it happens to just not be my style, but it certainly is effective, and I don't think it's like there's anything wrong with it. The way that I've gotten some of my matches that people probably don't even know is that, like, I'll give you an example. Like when I was a brown belt, towards the end of brown belt, I wanted to compete on Kasai. and they pretty much had told me, hey, listen, we'd love to have you, but we can't like fly anybody in for you to compete against because we got to pay the big name guys. We got to pay the big boys. And I was kind of in a dilemma because all the local guys, like in New York City, I've already competed against all of them. So it wouldn't really make sense to do, to fight so and so for a third time or so and so for a fourth time. So I messaged privately a competitor that I had a lot of respect for. And I pretty much framed it like, hey, man, listen, we both want the same thing. We both want to be on this show and get the opportunity to compete against somebody really good on a big stage that's going to get us exposure and the whole thing. It would be it'd be an honor to compete with you. I didn't even say like compete against you. I said compete with you because in truth, like that's what we're doing, like we competitors need other competitors in order to have a career in what we're doing. And
100%.
and it was great. Like, he was like, yeah, man, like I'd love to compete against you. We ended up doing the match. It was against Ash Williams. Unfortunately, it didn't go my way. It was a close match, but I feel like we had a good amount of respect for each other because we there was a certain level of professionalism that was kept. Now, had I gone on Instagram and said, Ash Williams sucks, I want to fight you, he probably wouldn't have taken the match. He really had no reason to, especially because at the time I was a brown belt. Like he was a pretty well established black belt. But sometimes I think like I'm not saying the other way can't work. I'm just saying in that situation, I don't think it would have because Ash is a pretty respectful and down to earth dude. And so I think there's more than one way to get the matches you want. Calling people out is one of them, but it's not the only way to do things.
I love hearing that's how you went about it because, like you said, that level of professionalism, it's nice to keep that. And like you said, it makes it more positive experience for both of you. It's not just
Yeah.
that, oh, this dude's a butt. I guess I'll fight him just to put him in his place or whatever.
Yeah. And
But
I'm not even saying like I'm this like saint and there's people, that I love everybody. Like believe me, there's competitors in this game I don't like very much.
oh
But
yeah,
you're never gonna hear me talk about it like publicly. Um I'll I'll handle it when I actually get my hands on them. I'm not gonna because I feel like if I talk shit about them, they're actually less likely to want to come and get it. So um but yeah, so that's just kind of my style.
absolutely. I like that style too. You had mentioned that you went against pretty much all the local competitors, right? So my question is, because I'm really like this intrigues me, and I like asking different ones about this. When it comes to rematches, do you feel like that it's beneficial? Because I think sometimes if you take rematches, it becomes more of it feels more like training to me.
Hmm.
So I feel like it's hard to take it seriously. What are your thoughts on that? Oh shit. Okay.
I've benefited greatly from rematches. I think they're a great way to like measure your development and where you've come. I've had some really good experiences where on four different occasions I've lost um, matches to good competitors. And sometimes those losses were by this much, and sometimes those losses were by this much. But in the rematches, I was able to win fairly dominantly. And it was a good feeling, not only because it's always nice to get one back on somebody that beat you. That's okay. Um, I got a, I got a Ryan's little guy here trying to get. Um, but so I would say like it was good like not only to get a win back over someone that beat me, but also to see like, oh man, like I am improving because sometimes you feel like you're plateauing. And it is a measure of improvement to obviously beat somebody that previously beat you. Now, at a certain point though, I've also not taken rematches, because if I didn't feel that it was in that light of measuring my improvement, like if I felt like, all right, this rematch won't do or prove anything, I'm not going to fight the same guy 5 times
Right.
if I can help it. Sometimes you run into each other anyway. But but yeah, overall, I think they're a good way to measure development and to motivate you a little bit more, especially when you're getting ready for somebody that kicked your butt last time.
That's good opinion. I like that input. Frank, I think that's all I got for you today. I really appreciate you coming on here. Is there anything you want to tell people watching that they might not know about you?
Yeah, first of all, thanks so much for having me on. It was awesome.
Absolutely.
And I'll be competing after July 19th at the Jiu-Jitsu Overtime from El Paso, Texas. It'll be live on UFC Fight Pass, so I'm very much looking forward to mixing it up with some, really tough EBI veterans, IBJJF champs in there. They got just about everybody, so it's going to be a really tough bracket, and I'm very much looking forward to be a part of it.
That's awesome. I didn't even know you were on that. Good luck. I'm sure you do really well. Before we head off here, I'm gonna give a shout out to our sponsors. Sweeps Apparel, Stretch Nine, and BTG Coffee. If y'all get a chance, check them out. Is there anyone else you want to give a shout out to, Frank?
Uh, no, just I guess my team, Henzo Gracie Academy, Henzo Gracie Bayside, Henzo Gracie Bronx, and yeah, super appreciative of all you guys and all my training partners
Awesome.
and future kimonos.
Nice. Like I said, really appreciate you coming on here, Frank. Thanks for talking with us. That's all we got. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
See ya.